The Hall of Consensus was built to withstand war, betrayal, and time itself. Yet it trembled now beneath a fear no architect had planned for. The council chamber stretched wide with concentric rings of stone seats, each occupied by representatives of the allied systems. Their banners hung limp, as if even fabric understood the gravity of the moment. At the center stood the Oculus table, a floating ring of light that displayed no enemy fleet, no star charts, no casualty numbers. Only a shifting darkness that refused to resolve into shape. The enemy had no name because no one had survived long enough to give it one. Worlds went silent without explosions, without distress calls, without debris fields. Entire populations vanished as if reality itself had blinked. The first losses were dismissed as natural disasters or internal collapse, until patterns emerged, and the Council could no longer deny the truth. Something was erasing civilization with precision and patience. High Chancellor Merivan rose slowly, his species known for calm deliberation, yet his frills were pale with strain. He reminded the chamber that the Council existed to preserve life above pride. Yet even as he spoke those words, murmurs rippled outward. Surrender was a word etched deep with shame. Never before had the allied systems bent the knee to an unseen foe. Admiral Kesrith slammed a clawed hand against her console. Her fleets had patrolled the outer reaches when the listening stations went dark. She demanded targets, strategies, anything that could be fought. But the tacticians had nothing to offer. Weapons passed through the darkness without effect. Probes returned scrambled or not at all. It was as if the enemy occupied a layer of existence adjacent to theirs. A philosopher delegate from the Quiet Moons proposed that the enemy might not even recognize the Council as sentient opposition, suggesting surrender might simply mean compliance with an incomprehensible natural process. The idea sparked outrage, yet no one could fully dismiss it. The data supported nothing else. As the debate raged, a lone archivist activated an ancient protocol, projecting records from extinct civilizations uncovered in deep time surveys. Everyone showed the same final entry: councils debating, fleets mobilizing, prayers offered, and then silence. The chamber grew still as the implications settled. Resistance had always come too late. When the session adjourned, no vote was taken. The council members filed out beneath banners that now felt like relics. Each carried the same unspoken question: could surrender to an enemy with no name preserve existence? Or would it merely delay the inevitable? The answer waited somewhere beyond sight, listening, or perhaps not listening at all. The second session convened under emergency protocols. Lights dimmed to conserve power, though no attack had yet reached the capital system. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. The council was practicing for absence, for the possibility that light itself might soon be unnecessary. Scientific delegates presented findings that contradicted one another yet pointed toward the same conclusion. The enemy did not travel through space, it did not emit energy, and it did not obey causality as the Council understood it. One theory suggested it was a corrective force, pruning complexity from the universe. Another claimed it was the remnant shadow of a prior cosmic cycle, surviving by unmaking what followed. Ambassador Lethrain argued that surrender required communication, and communication required language. How did one negotiate with something that left no messages, no demands, no warnings in response? The intelligence core revealed a single anomaly: one world spared while all neighbors vanished. The planet showed no signs of resistance or defense. Its population had simply gone silent, ceasing broadcasts, dismantling satellites, retreating into isolation. This sparked a dangerous idea. Perhaps surrender was not an act of submission, but of withdrawal, a turning inward so complete that the enemy lost interest. The proposal fractured the chamber. Some called it survival through humility, others named it slow extinction by choice. Military hardliners countered with a final contingency: weaponizing spacetime itself, collapsing corridors of probability in the enemy path. The cost would be catastrophic: stars destabilized, systems erased. But it would prove that the Council chose defiance over erasure. The phrase echoed, defiance over erasure, as if it were a creed rather than a gamble. In the public galleries, observers watched in silence, trillions of lives reduced to abstractions, yet fear leaked through every species barrier. The Council had always promised protection. Now it debated which form of ending was least cruel. A junior envoy, barely authorized to speak, asked a question that reframed the debate. What if the enemy was not destroying civilization, but harvesting decision points? What if the act of choosing mattered more than the outcome? The chamber dismissed the idea at first, yet it lingered, a poison or a revelation. As the session closed, the council authorized a single act, a message broadcast on all frequencies, offering surrender without terms, no threat, no plea, only acknowledgement. The transmission carried no symbols of power, only coordinates and silence after. The council waited, measuring time in heartbeats and stellar rotations, knowing that response or absence would define the fate of everything that remembered them. The response arrived without signal, without distortion, without warning. One moment the chamber existed, the next every council member experienced the same intrusion. A pressure behind thought, not pain, not sound, but certainty. The enemy with no name did not speak. It impressed understanding directly upon consciousness. Each delegate perceived it differently, a vast stillness, an endless corridor, a mirror that showed civilizations collapsing into simplicity. Yet the message was shared, existence was permitted, while complexity remained unobserved. The enemy was not a conqueror but a boundary, a limit beyond which patterns became unstable. Surrender was not kneeling, it was choosing to remain beneath that boundary, no expansion beyond certain thresholds, no manipulation of deeper physical laws, no attempts to transcend mortality through artificial continuance. The price was stagnation, the reward was survival. The revelation shattered assumptions. Many species had already crossed the line unknowingly. Their experiments, their ambitions, their attempts to escape entropy had marked them for erasure. The council itself was on the brink, its unity, its reach, its very act of coordination pushing complexity upward. Debate reignited with new ferocity. Was survival without progress still life? Could culture endure without striving? Philosophers argued that meaning required limits. Scientists warned that enforced simplicity would doom them to eventual natural extinction. Generals raged that this was cosmic tyranny by omission. Yet beneath the arguments lay a quieter truth. The enemy was not threatening, it was indifferent, it would not negotiate further, it would not enforce compliance beyond withdrawal of permission. Worlds would vanish not from punishment, but from excess. A vote was finally called, not on surrender, but on dissolution, whether the council itself should cease to exist, fragmenting into isolated cultures below the threshold. The irony was brutal. Unity had been their greatest strength. Now it was their greatest risk. One by one, delegates cast their decisions, some with relief, others with visible grief. The tally leaned toward dissolution, preservation through separation. Before the final vote, Chancellor Merivan spoke once more. He reminded them that history would not remember their courage or fear, only their choice, and that even endings could be acts of guardianship. The vote passed, the Council of Allied Systems formally disbanded, archives sealed, fleets recalled, networks severed. The chamber dimmed as systems shut down, not in defeat, but in deliberate quiet. As the delegates departed to scattered stars, each carried the same weight, the knowledge that the enemy still watched, not with malice, but with patience, and that survival now depended not on conquest or unity, but on restraint, a fragile piece written into the structure of reality itself. In the centuries that followed, history became local, myths replaced star maps, and the great silence between worlds deepened. Civilizations turned inward, refining art, ritual, and philosophy within chosen limits. Technology plateaued by design, innovation measured against the invisible boundary no one dared test. On some worlds, the council became legend, a cautionary tale about reaching too far. On others, it was erased entirely, knowledge deemed too dangerous to preserve. Yet the enemy remained, an unspoken constant, shaping behavior without presence. A few societies could not accept the constraint, driven by curiosity or desperation. They pushed beyond, experimenting in hidden labs, building machines meant to step outside causality. Their disappearance reinforced the lesson without spectacle. No warning, no martyrdom, only absence. Children grew up beneath stars that no longer promised destiny, but shelter. Poets wrote of horizons not crossed. Philosophers taught that meaning was not found in expansion, but in depth. The universe did not end, it narrowed, becoming intimate, survivable. Somewhere beyond perception, the boundary held not a wall, but a balance. The enemy with no name did not celebrate, did not judge, it simply allowed what fit to remain and what exceeded to fade. In time, even memory of the debate softened, surrender reframed as choice, restraint as wisdom. The council's final act was not remembered as fear, but as care, a willingness to let go of greatness to preserve existence. And so life continued, quieter, smaller, yet real, each world a careful note in a cosmic composition that favored silence over crescendo. The universe listened, or perhaps it did not, but it endured, and within its limits, so did they.